And John, I think I have an answer for all of this, because what you've said is absolutely correct. It's absolutely true. It is about control. The television, they don't call it programming for nothing. And they're just trying to convince you to pay your fair share. Don't call attention to yourself. Just be quiet. But the control of the food, the poisoning of the food, the poisoning of the fluoride, the poisoning of our water, the chemtrails, and everything that's happening around us is it's very real, and it's happening. And how do you fight that? How do you fight that? And my answer I came up with was Liberty Villages, because as Richard Kelly Hoskins stated, the self-sufficient family farm is the basis of every civilization. Every civilization. And anytime a communist regime takes over a country, they go after three classes of people in order. They go after the farmers first, because they don't want you being able to feed yourself. Plank number 9 on the Communist Manifesto is corporate farms. 2, they go after the intelligentsia. That's anybody like you or I that are smart enough to know what they're doing and trying to point it out to their fellow humans. And 3, they go after the veterans and the law enforcement that are still loyal to the old regime. That would be any of us that realized there wasn't an expiration date on that oath we took to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The answer I came up with was something called Liberty Villages, where you take a farm, you take 5 acres of a 100-acre farm, put low-cost shelters on it, build your own shelters, put your own electricity on there, and grow food that hasn't been genetically modified by Monsanto, and they're genetically modified corn. Rats won't even eat it, and they're feeding it to your children. And if you can live in a village with a dozen other people, and a dozen of those people being combat hardened veterans to protect you and mend the fences and keep the vehicles running, milk the goats, and defend it in case everything falls apart and the food supply falls apart and the truck lines don't run, then you've got an answer. And you don't really, if you're generating your own power and growing your own food, you don't need the government or the New World Order or the banksters for nothing. Your opinion on that?
Well, there again, I mean, we did the top of the show, we talked about the Branch Davidians. I think that's exactly what they were trying to do.
I do too.
And we see how we see how that works out. I don't, I think you're right that needs to be done, but I think that also makes you a target, just like we were talking earlier, that they would nip in the bud. I don't, Clay, I think that is not an answer when you look at it in its totality. Sure, if you look at it and it would work, but you're talking about doing something that as soon as you do it, they would want to nip it in the bud. They don't want that catching on. I mean, they're making heirloom seeds illegal in the United States.
That's right. That's right. And by the way, that is the reason they tried to kill me in 2004. I mean, that was definitely a hit. They knew where I was going. They tapped my phones. They knew where I was going. And
well, I don't doubt that they're willing to do whatever they got to do to stay in control. I think it would be great if everybody was self-sufficient. If we look at the older writings of like Quinn, who expressed that the concept that once we became an agricultural people, we really did kind of give up a certain amount of freedom, because we all got tied to each other to the point where, we socialized and civilized around whatever area where our concentrated food supply was. And that in and of itself is the commencement of an actual society. So what you do is, if you did that, is you'd be starting a new society, which would be competing with their society, and they would be a little worried about losing control. And when they get concerned that they may lose control over a person, or especially a group, then they attack. And they attack in heinous ways, and swiftly and powerfully, and there's really no way to stop them. So if you're saying that that's a good idea, and that would be good for everybody to do, and we would all be better off, I would agree up to the point where I would give the caveat, but remember, when you do this, they're going to kill you. And they will. And I don't doubt that at all. They won't just accept and allow people to do that. If they were okay with allowing that to do that, allowing us to be self-sufficient and not need them, they wouldn't make heirloom seeds illegal. They wouldn't make it okay to give some 10-year-old boy that has too much energy into a zombie by drugging him so that they can control. What they're doing is evil and wrong, and there are no limits to their evil. So I think pushing for that kind of resolution to get people free will cause those people to be targets.
Well, I've certainly been a target. They've tried to destroy every business that I've got. They contacted every stockholder in a major corporation that was buying one of my magazines, tell them what a right-wing, radical, racist, anti-Semite I am. And I don't care what religion you are. You want to stick your nose in your ass up in the air, pray to Mecca, no problem. The Constitution allows you to do that. I'll try to keep the St. Bernard off of you, no problem. Just don't expect me to get down on my knees with you. Now, let's talk about some of your problems. What do you do? Why did I have you on there? You work with the courts. You work with what do you tell me what you do?
Well, I primarily disperse information and teach people what's going on as far as the foreclosures. We used to have these mock court classes where anybody that was going to court with the banks could come in and we'd practice. I'd either act like a judge or I'd act like an attorney, and we'd practice, because what happens when people walk in the court, if they've never been there before, they get so intimidated, their sphincter tightens up, their mouths close, and they lose because they're just intimidated. So we'd hold these mock court classes a couple of times a week, and I would basically beat the crap out of people and literally get them to the point where by the time they went into court, they were so used to operating, being that intimidated, that they didn't even know they were being intimidated by the court. And it worked very well. What's happened now is we've gotten this foreclosure thing down to such simple terms that we're not even going to court much. We created this new, and I say we because the groups helped me disperse it, but I'm kind of there studying all this stuff and figuring out how the system is designed to screw us, and we got it down to the simple concept of the recorded documents. And now what we do is we file complaints on the notaries, because the whole thing is predicated on the notarized documents. And what we can prove is that all the notarizations are bad. It depends on what state somebody's in, but Arizona, like last night I was explaining something to a guy, and we were looking at his deed of trust, and he's going through a foreclosure, and the notary did not write in her expiration date of her commission on the notary page. That means that the notarization is invalid, which means that it was not properly acknowledged, which means that the deed of trust is a false document, which means when they recorded that deed of trust, they committed a felony under Arizona law. So not only will they not be able to foreclose, but they've committed numerous felonies against this guy, and he can hold the law firm accountable for that. So we've simplified it to where we're trying to keep people from having to go to court and can just negotiate for the banks to walk away. And so far we've had several notaries have their commission revoked because of the errors, which makes the documents that they notarized invalid, which makes the whole foreclosure invalid. And we've had great success with it, and now there's law firms that are doing exactly what we created, and they even listen to the seminars that I put on, and they've even actually hired me to advise them. So it's a very effective way of stopping the foreclosure. In every state in the union, there's a law on the books that says the filing and or recording of a false and or forged document in a public office is a crime. And it's always a felony. In Utah, it's like a Class 3 felony. In Arizona, it's a Class 6 felony. And so once we can prove that the notary did not do their job correctly, then we can invalidate the acknowledgement. There's also a law in every state that requires any documents dealing with real property to be properly acknowledged by a notary before being recorded. So when we prove that they weren't properly acknowledged, then we prove that they shouldn't have been recorded, and the fact that they were recorded, the crime was committed. So the whole deal goes out the window. And now we've gotten to the point, before we were doing it with the documents.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Thank you. Okay. All right. We're off the half hour or 45 minutes on the Blog Talk Radio. That's all. We're still recording. Everything's still going. Okay. The whole show will be up on the link under your name on the Free American.
So, okay. Well, anyways, first we're doing it with the documents that they recorded to foreclose. And then we stumbled upon some other information, and now we're finding that the deeds of trust were not properly notarized. And so the whole deal, that what happens when the deed of trust or the mortgage is invalid, they would have to get you to sign another mortgage or just walk away completely. They have no rights to the property. So it's going very, very well. As a matter of fact, we are probably, I hesitate to say this because I don't have necessarily facts supporting it, but from what we've seen, the amount of success we have compared to every other group or every other law firm in the country, nobody even comes close to us. Not even close. I mean, we zonk them on a regular basis. Last week in one day, I got 2 letters from the Secretary of State for our people were both notaries. Commissions were revoked. 2 in one day. So, and see, once you get the commission revoked, then you've established that the notary committed fraud. And everything that they notarized is no good. Well, documents that aren't notarized properly are no good when it pertains to real property. This doesn't apply to other stuff. We're just talking about real property. homes and land, that sort of thing. So that's what we concentrate on. Now, I got into this because of everything else going on in my life, and wasn't really able to get a job. Basically, and I can't really say much about my case right now because there's certain aspects going on with my case, but the long and the short of it is, years ago, I got involved with a man named Aaron Russo.
I know Aaron. I'm supposed to be anti-Semitic, but I had Aaron Russo on the cover of my magazine when he was running for governor.
Well, what happened was Aaron was making a movie, and I had always been pretty much anonymous. People only knew of me from my pseudonym, and they really didn't know who I was. And I died actually to a point where I had discussed things with people throughout the years, and they were talking about my pseudonym and not even knowing that they were talking to that person. So I had done a pretty good job remaining anonymous. Well, Aaron was having some issues concluding the movie, so he had somebody find me. And I got a call from Aaron, and he asked me to help, and I'm like, yeah, and it's like, you know, I knew I'd lose my anonymity, so, but it was worth it. The movie's very good. It's called America, Freedom, and Fascism.
Right.
Well, if you look at all the names involved in that movie, and I was very explicit that my name was not on the movie anywhere. You know, to me, it wasn't about fame or fortune or any of that. I just wanted the truth out there. That's all I do, is get the truth out there. And I didn't want to get, I knew there'd be some kind of recourse from these people. Well, a few years back, about 3 years ago, a man, very drunk, he had a .19 BAC and 900 milliliters of whiskey inside of him. So he was rapidly getting drunker. Decided that he would kidnap and murder my then fiance and myself. It didn't work out well for him. He died while we were escaping from the kidnapping and attempted murder. Well, because of his connections, they were either going to have to charge the person with him with accessory to his murder, because under Arizona law, if you're committing a felony and somebody dies, then you get charged with the murder. It's called the felony murder rule. Most states have a felony murder rule. So instead, they had to charge me, and just to protect the people involved that they didn't want to prosecute or have the information out. So I've been charged with murder too, second-degree murder. They want to put me in prison for the rest of my life to shut me up, and it's just been a nightmare. It's been a 3-year court battle. So
how did you escape from this guy? How was he trying to kill you? I mean, how did you escape, you and your fiancé?
There was, I got to be careful what I discuss, but there was a gun involved. There was a fight for the gun, and it did not work out well for him. The gun discharged, and the round entered his brain at point-blank range, within about 15 inches.
Okay.
So he died almost instantly, and we escaped.
And so you're still going to court for that?
3 years, yeah. Still in and out of court on a regular basis. They put me in jail for 8 months because we entered documents in the court proving it was a scam. The judge read the documents, ordered the case dismissed, the prosecutor took the order from the judge dismissing the case, sealed it, and then had me put in prison for recording a false document in the public office. I'm the first person in the history of the United States that has ever been imprisoned for entering evidence into a court. First person. It's never happened before, and I'm the only person. It's never happened since. That they literally put me in jail because we entered evidence into a court case.
That's pretty incredible. Our court systems. I mean, the judges get paid by 2 or 3 different agencies for finding you guilty, for backing up the government.
Well, here's what one of the things that I discovered a long time ago and has gone kind of viral over the internet. If you look at the pension plans for judges and elected officials in most states, the judges and elected officials have the same pension plan, and then all the other government employees have another pension plan. Well, I don't think it's any accident in the state of Arizona and several other states that the judge's pension plan is derived primarily from 2 markets. The real estate market, which is why judges always rule in favor of the banks in foreclosures, and the private prison system. In other words, if during any kind of a trial, if the person gets acquitted, the judge loses money. If the person gets convicted, the judge makes money. And that is heinous. So now the prosecutor and the cops, their pension funds are also derived from the private prison system. In Arizona, our governor's 3 top advisors all work for the private prison corporation in Arizona. Her 3 top advisors.
They brag about it. The Arizona prison system. We make more than just license plates. We compete with the with American businesses using slave labor.
Yep. And they're making a fortune, and the governor's all for them. Her pension plan is derived from the private prisons, all the judges, and people wonder why so many innocent people are convicted. And it's 90+% of the time when an innocent man is convicted and it gets overturned, it's for the same reasons. What happened is somewhere along the line, the cops destroyed the evidence proving the guy was innocent, or lied about the evidence to make it look like the evidence proves he's guilty when that evidence has nothing to do with anything. You know, there's a recent Walker case where the guy was convicted because, you know, his truck was, the whole back of it, outside the tailgate, you could see red all over it. And they told the jury that, you know, that was all the blood of the prostitute that they found dead and blah, 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 and they matched it. And it turned out that the whole time there was absolutely no blood on the vehicle. The red stuff was red mud that the truck had gotten stuck in just outside of a new development, a new home development that had already been graded, and the truck got stuck in it. And it was the police department that towed the truck out of the mud, because the guy, when he got stuck in it, he spun his tires, it sprayed the bed of the truck, and the cops knew that the red stuff was all mud. They knew it. And the officer that took the witness stand lied and said, you know, they tested it was the lady's blood, blah, 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 and the guy was convicted. Well, in appeal, they brought in the records, and another cop testified, no, we knew all along it was mud. Yet the one cop that lied, that got this guy put in prison for 10 years, nothing ever happened to him. He committed perjury and caused a man to be falsely convicted and was never charged or punished whatsoever. That's the problem. That's the whole problem in a nutshell. And so when you're in the situation that I'm in, it's a little scary because you get to see it firsthand. Let me give you a for instance in my case. They confiscated the vehicle, my personal truck, 3 years ago, well over 3 years ago when the event happened. And so the first thing that my attorneys at the time did is they go down to the vehicle and they cover it with a tarp. Cover it completely. Because there's blood all over this vehicle. Because the weapon was discharged inside the vehicle. The guy was partially inside the vehicle. So there's a lot of blood. He bled out all over the vehicle. Well, when we wanted to test the vehicle well over a year ago, the prosecutor told us that they had given away the vehicle. It's like, well, you can't. It's primary evidence. It's exculpatory. And they're like, well, we did. Then we found out 2 months ago, after looking for this truck for about a year, calling every state registration, calling the banks, calling dealers that dealt in these kind of vehicles, and never able to find it, the prosecutor admitted in open court that they had the vehicle the whole time. So we made arrangements to go down to see the vehicle. And what they had done, and the impound yard officer, the police officer that watches the impound yard, admitted openly that somebody came in and removed the tarp. So they pulled the tarp off the vehicle and put it outside and made sure that the rain washed off the blood. And they left it that way for about a year so that they could purposely destroy the evidence. Because they want to claim that the guy was nowhere near the vehicle.
Okay, we're almost out of time. John, I'd like to have you back on as this case progresses, because I would like to. I'd like to know exactly, how you do, and if you get down to Tucson, come down to see me. We'll have some coffee together. Okay, Clay. Yeah, I can't really leave the Maricopa County, but occasionally I get permission to leave the county. So, yeah, if I can set up something, I'll get down and say hello. All right. I get up there from time to time, so maybe we can do that. All right, we're out of time. Folks, let me tell you, I'd like for you to order my books. I've got 2 fiction series. I got 4 films, True Face of FEMA being one you should see, because it tells you exactly what they are planning with this new Madrid fault line. John Stewart's my guest. Again, thank you, sir. I sure appreciate it. Okay, you have a good one. All right, sir. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Okay, let me do this.
Call recording has been completed.
There we go. All right. Alright, think we got everything there. I think we got everything there. Okay. More music. More music while I'm doing all this.